The excuses we make allow it to grow. Violence against women. Let's stop it at the start.
If you're an Australian male that pays even a modicum of attention to the media, you had to know this was coming. Last September, Malcolm Turnbull usurped Tony Abbott as Prime Minister. And then he did what most new Prime Ministers do. He came out with a bold new initiative. That initiative was this: keep women safe. And who could argue with that? Especially in a country where women experience a disproportionate amount of violence. Except that's actually not true, is it? You see, if you care to look past the narrative and examine the facts, you'll find that the majority of those that experience violent crime in Australia are male. But of course, the Prime Minister wasn't talking about overall violence. He was specifically referring to domestic violence, of which women constitute the majority of victims, something on the order of 2/3 to 70%. But why concentrate on domestic violence? Well, because that fits the narrative of women as victims. Because if you focused on overall violence, then you couldn't justifiably single out women for special treatment. And as you would expect from a program aimed at stopping violence against women, there's absolutely nothing in it for men. Except for the $2 million of increased funding for Men's Line, for tools and resources to support perpetrators not to reoffend. That's right, there's no funding for the more than 30% of domestic violence victims that are male, but generously 2% of the funding from this program is aimed at male perpetrators to stop them reoffending. And no, in case you were wondering, there's no money allocated to female perpetrators to stop them from reoffending. So for all intensive purposes, male victims and female perpetrators of domestic violence don't exist. And you know why? Because fuck men. That's why. Because that fits with the dominant narrative of gender relations in this country. Men are the oppressors and women are always and everywhere victims. What an empowering message for women. The excerpt of the ad shown at the beginning of this video is part of this campaign to change young people's attitudes to violence. According to ABC News, the campaign will focus on influencers. That is, people, often parents, that excuse the bad behaviour of boys and young men. The idea is to stop these attitudes early on in a boy's life, because of course only boys have these attitudes. Girls walk around with permanent halos above their innocent heads. The first ad will run on Australian TV this Sunday, April 24th. So let's have a look.
You pop those down there. You're okay. Just did it because he likes you.
Okay, so what do we have here? Bad male behaviour? Check. Innocent, helpful, halo-wearing girl? Check. An unhelpful attitude by parent? Check. This parent really has failed here. You would at least ask that boy to watch what he's doing. And you know what? I think most parents probably would. Moving on.
Don't try like a girl, mate. Come on.
No bad behaviour here, but unhelpful attitude of presumably father. The only problem with this one is that it feels more than a little contrived. Throwing a ball underarm is not throwing like a girl. It seems perfectly reasonable that anyone would throw the ball underarm, given how close these two are. Male cricketers routinely underarm the ball to each other on the field, and it is often the most efficient way to effect a run-out. But throwing like a girl is something that has been extensively studied for more than 50 years, and it can't be sexist since the article cited here was written by a woman. Quote, "To understand why a girl throws like a girl, it's necessary to define what throwing like a girl is. According to Thomas," that's the misogynist male that conducted this research, "a girl throwing overhand looks more like she's throwing a dart than a ball. It's a slow, weak forearm motion with a short step on the same side as the throwing hand. A boy's throw, by contrast, involves the entire body. Thomas describes a skillful overhand throw as an uncoiling in 3 phases. Step, with the foot opposite the throwing hand, rotate with hips first, then shoulders, and whip with the arm and hand. Girls don't do any of those 3 steps as successfully as boys, and goes on to say, even when women learn to rotate hips and shoulders separately, they don't do it as fast as men. The full article is linked below and worth a read. So throwing like a girl is usually used for a weak overarm throw. If the situation in this ad were accurate, yeah, that's a shitty thing to say, but it seems to lack authenticity.
Look at that. Yes.
Again, more bad male behaviour, and presumably the guy on the right is at fault here for not pulling his friends up on it.
Why? Why are you doing it? You're okay. He loves you.
More toxic masculinity, and the woman is kidding herself that everything is okay. And presumably she has this unfortunate attitude because it's been reinforced all through her life. Because you see, women have no agency. It's always someone else's fault.
What do you mean, what do I do?
Violence against women starts with disrespect. The excuses we make, allow it to grow.
And finally, we get to see the end result of all this unchecked toxic masculinity. Now again, I don't have a problem about addressing bad or apathetic attitudes towards disrespect and violence, but would it be too much to ask for a little balance? What is the takeaway for a young girl from this ad? That boys are mean and violent through all stages of life, and that women are always innocent victims. What does a little boy get from this? Does he think he's inherently disrespectful and violent? The good news is that these ads will be appearing not only on TV, but on the radio, in print, and online. So fellas, get ready for the onslaught, starting Sunday.